Margaret Abbott, who we've just briefly introduced you to, certainly had a surprise of her own when she discovered more about her long-lost family. Beside her is genealogist Danny Curran, talking to him shortly. But from your point of view, Margaret, goodness me, did you get a surprise? Tell us what happened.
I just couldn't believe it.
What happened to you?
Well, I got the letter through the post and I read it and I thought, oh, that's a scam. So I screwed it up, threw it in the bin.
What did it say?
It said, you know, you're an interested person that we've been trying to find you. And I thought, oh, and it can't be. And so I threw it in the bin. And then I thought, no, I better have another look, which I did. And then I recognised Mary Major, which I knew to be my sister's name. So I thought, well, I'd better ring them up. And then, of course, I did. And James asked me a few questions, and he said, yes, you are the person we've been looking for. So I just couldn't believe it then.
So the net result is she's 300,000 quid better off as a result. And although you recognise the name, you and that sister, who was a half-sister, you weren't close.
No, I never met her.
Yeah?
Because she was 19 when I was born. My father's first wife had died, and so I'd never met her, but I was aware of her.
So who told you about her?
My mother. Yeah, she said, you've got to have a sister and she's 19. But I never saw her. And
so that was it? It was never mentioned again?
No, and my father left my mother when I was 10 months old.
Mm. So life had been pretty tough for
Yes,
you and your mum as well. And what about you going forward in your life? Before you had this money, how was life for you?
Well, it's been a very hard life because, I mean, we were bombed out. I caught polio and had to sleep in Highbury Underground. And from being down there and the troops passing through, I caught polio. Then I was in hospital for 2 years and I was sent to Durham because the raids were on London. And my mother couldn't visit me, so she came once a month. So I was
tough childhood for you and your mum.
Well, you don't bond with your parent if you're not.
What about you and bringing up your own children? How is life in terms of, were you financially secure?
Well, the thing is, I had the children against medical advice. They said I didn't, because I always wanted 4. And they said, no, you should only have 1. You need someone to look after you. But my husband and I, we were both only children, so we had the 4. But having them was an absolute joy. I mean, a boy, girl I had, and I was just over the moon.
And the thing is, your half-sister, though, the reason her inheritance came to you, or the money came to you, was that she hadn't made a will and she had no family to give it to. Is that right? You were the nearest.
No, they never had any children.
Yeah.
But a cousin, again, I don't know him, he looked after her, sold her house, got her into a home where he took care of her. So it's quite a mystery how she didn't make a will. But anyway, she didn't, and then of course.
And you are the beneficiary.
And Danny, this is you were the founder of Finders International. So what does Finders International do, and how were you involved in Margaret's story?
Yeah, so what we did is we trace missing heirs to estates, beneficiaries to assets, that kind of thing. And Margaret's case was typical in that her initial reaction was, this might be a scam, I'm going to throw the letter in the bin. But then we persisted with it, of course, and the other strange aspect of this case was, as she mentioned, there was a cousin already making a claim. So we were kind of verifying initially. We thought we were just checking that the cousin was a genuine claimant. But as it transpired, we then found a prior claimant who was Margaret herself. So she inherited the whole estate, which of course left the cousins disappointed, but legally the correct thing had been done and Margaret benefited from that.
And is that because Margaret's half-sister hadn't left a will? I mean, if she had have left a will, it could have been very different.
Exactly. I mean, many cases we find a will further into the process, because looking for a will, often a will is tucked down the back of a wardrobe or, you know, maybe stored somewhere unexpected. So we don't always find a will straight away. But in Margaret's case, after all the due diligence and the searches were done, there was no will, and we were able to proceed. And after a year or so it takes to wind up the estate, then she was better off as a result.
Now, listening to you speaking, a lot of people maybe thinking, I hope I could be better off as a result with this. How do they trace a relative? What are the initial steps?
Well, a lot of people think they know their family, they know the extent of their family. Obviously, the first thing I'd always recommend is speak to the eldest relatives. You know, the eldest members of the families, get all their information, the rumours, the stories, because it's very hard to keep skeletons in the closet when you're doing family history. And you do uncover things that maybe that your grandfather never mentioned or your grandmother wouldn't talk about. So it's important to kind of extract that information from them, write it all down, draft a family tree, and then you start to delve into the records and build up your ancestry and document the relationships, usually with birth, marriage and death certificates to start with, between people. You see who's connected and how.
We've got half a minute left, but DNA these days can play a role, yes?
Yeah, we just had our first big case where a body was exhumed and we took DNA from the body because we identified a son who we thought was a son, and we had to prove it through DNA. And there was no documented evidence, and it came back as he was 53 million times more likely to be the relative.
Fascinating stuff.
So, yeah.
It was Ant and Dec's DNA Journey, which is 9 o'clock on Sunday, got us talking about all of this. Danny, really good hearing from you from Finders International there. And Margaret Abbott, thank you.